Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
It's one mic. It's one mic.
Give me a moment, would you, friend? I've never been on trial for my thoughts before.
Welcome to the Only One Mic podcast. Carl Gerard, Brooklyn Dre. Just Me is taking a break tonight, so shout out to Just Me. We're actually joined tonight by Miss Kellye Garrett. How are you, Kellye?
Hi.
Hey, there you go on the wake up. I know you was talking
I know. How are you guys?
You're doing
I'm
good.
a little tired,
Said
but
she
I'm
was
good.
tired, but then the smile came on, so we all good now, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
You gonna
It's a $1 million smile.
$1 million smile on her face. So,
Right.
all right. So we joined by Kellye, and Kellye is a author of crime novels.
That's correct.
And so she thinks all day about how to kill people.
Yes, all day, every day.
all
That's all I
day,
do.
every day.
Don't try me.
Don't try it. See, and it's a fun fact. Newark, New Jersey, is it?
That's where I grew up. That's where I was born. I grew up in the suburbs, but my family's from Newark. So.
Okay, because that would have put a little extra sting to that. She thinks about murder all day, and she's from
Hey,
Newark, New
leave
Jersey.
Newark alone.
So that's the sixth borough. That's what we call it in Brooklyn.
Yeah, the
Sixth
sixth
borough.
borough. Yeah. Shout out to Newark. All right, so we want to get into all of your kudos and accomplishments and everything that led you up to the first of your books, the Detective by Day series, and actually very, very good book. I really enjoyed it.
He said actually, like you're surprised. He said actually.
Actually, a very good story. I'm not going to say I'm surprised, because the way that, and don't take that wrong, Kellye, because that's just me adding in filler words, I guess. But very good story. And to me, when I was reading it, it read more like it could be a TV show.
Well, I have a TV background, so that's probably why.
Yeah, and we're gonna jump into that too. So, I can actually sit here and toot the horn for you, but do you want to tell our listeners all of your wonderful, wonderful accomplishments? It's easier if I read it, but I want you to say it.
It's just weird. I hate people tell me about, I don't want to sound like cocky or anything like that, but I am an author.
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 books published, 2 in the series that you were talking about, the Detective by Day series, and a new one that comes out March 8th, Like a Sister, and that's a standalone. And so the Detective by Day series, the first one came out in 2017, Hollywood Homicide. It's meant to be like a really funny, heightened reality, lightweight mystery series set obviously in Hollywood. And it won the Anthony, the Agatha, the Lefty, and the Ippy Award for Best First Novel. And then the follow-up, Hollywood Ending, was nominated for a couple of awards and was featured on the Today Show for a Best Summer Read of 2019.
Right.
And so now the standalone, which comes out March 8th, is more of a serious book, although it still has my sarcasm in it, and it's set in New York. So
Yeah, and that is one I want to dive into, because it seems to me that your latest book coming out, Like a Sister, is based on an actual case.
it's based on a headline of a case. Yeah.
Of a case, yeah. So we're going to dive into that, but let's talk about Miss Dana Anderson, your heroine, if I can use
My
that.
firstborn, I guess, right?
Your firstborn,
My
right?
first written. Yeah.
Well, it is your baby. I mean, the book comes out, it's your baby, right?
It is.
So,
No, it is I feel very attached to that book, even though I haven't really read it in a long time. I feel so attached to that character.
You haven't read it in a long time?
No, because I'm the type of writer, I'm a word person, words on a page, are just, that's what I love. And so I want to rewrite it every time if you give me a sentence 5 times, I will try to tweak it 5 times. So it's hard to go back and reread something that I've written, because I want to fix it. And you can't fix it if it's actually a published book. Right. So that's why I don't read my stuff. And also, you have to read it so much when you're in the process. You have your drafts you have to do that you write. Then you have copy edits, and then you have page proofs. You read it so many times that you actually get low key sick of your own book before it comes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this particular one, story is basically I don't want to tell your story, but
Go ahead. Go
Okay, I'm going to put it in a nice small chunk. So Dana Anderson is a semi broke
semi-famous
broke actress.
Semi-famous mega broke, yeah.
Now, when because when I was reading, I'm like, semi-broke. Semi-famous broke. I keep
semi-famous mega broke.
Mega broke. Okay, because I'm like, when I say it. But basically, the whole premise is funny because, her parents are going through something. She's broke, obviously, trying to save the house and all that. I don't want to give too much away. But she has the idea of solving a crime. It didn't intentionally start off. It's just basically, I'm going to give a tip to try to get some money for the reward of the tip and all. But she actually now wants to solve the crime. She wants to she wants to bring this person to justice. But it's like the whole comedy of errors of actual amateur detective.
That's what to me, like, even with my series, which is, like I said, lighter and meant to be a heightened reality, I still want it to be like realistic. Like, if you and I or any of the three of us are trying to solve a crime, like, we would not be good at it first go around. Like, we're not the police, we're not professionals, and so that, like, Dana is not going to be amazing at trying to solve a crime the first go round. She gets a little bit better in the second book, but like the first one, she's going to make mistakes, she's going to jump to conclusions, she's going to put herself in danger. And so that was really important to me, to have a realistic view of what would happen if an average person tried to solve a murder.
Because like in a realistic view, you'll think to yourself, like, none of us would have ever thought to say, yeah, I'm gonna try to turn somebody in for some money.
No, that's where I got the idea, where I was mega broke myself, and I was a semi-successful TV writer, and I was driving down the street and I saw a billboard offering a $15,000 reward for information on a murder. And my first thought was, I should try to solve that. But then the second thought was, that's a ridiculous idea. Like, my mother would kill me. And so I was like, oh, that would be a really good idea for a book. So that's where Hollywood Homicide came from, me driving down the street looking at a billboard. So
all of us that think that, we just call 1-800-TIPS and get the local criminal locked up. Don't try to solve the case. Just make the call and keep it moving. Right?
However it works, man. Get it, man. Get that money.
Definitely. So what was the process of creating these characters and all? Because she has a bunch of eclectic group of friends and all, and you have to make space for each one of these people in your head. So when you came up with the character of Dana in particular, where did you drive that from? Was it based on someone? Did you kind of craft it on someone's personality or anything?
I think at the time, like I said, I was kind of trying to figure out my life out. Mm-hmm. This was like a long time ago. And so I kind of took my angst and I put it in Dana. Like, she was a commercial spokesperson, like, imagine like the Popeyes lady, or like the progressive woman. And she gets fired from it, and she can't find another acting job. And so she's kind of like retired in quotes, acting like it was her choice. And she's just trying to figure out what to do with her life. And she's just really confused. And I think that's why she latches on to this murder so much. It gives her purpose. And that was kind of what I was feeling like at the time. Luckily I had a book that gave me a purpose. I didn't have to do a murder solving. But that's where she came from. And I think I always say, people are like, oh, is she like you? And I'm like, well, if you like her, she's like me. If you don't like her, then no, of course she's not like me, But I think, that sarcasm, because it's a first person narrative. I just write I'm just super sarcastic anyway, so I think it just comes through my books.
Just natural.
It's just so natural. and that's where it came from. And then the other characters I wanted to, it's about the entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to kind of show the different aspects of fame, because I think people just see the successful people. Like, you just hear about Will Smith. But for like every Will Smith, there's 1,000 people who came to LA and never made it. Right. And so you look at it with the fame element, where Dana was famous. Her friend Omari is about to be famous. Her friend Sia, oh my God, Sienna's desperate to be famous. And then there's Emmy, who the last thing she wants is to be famous, but her twin sister is the biggest actress in the world. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's where the different characters came from, and just having fun with that. So
do you have an ending in mind before you start the story, or do you put the characters together first? Or
I usually know who killed them. Like, I think for all three of my books, and this I'm working on a new one now. I know who did it, so I do have that. I tend to do really detailed outlines, but then I give myself permission to veer from the outline. So like usually the bigger beats are the same, like the big plot twist, but how I get there might change. So that's where it kind of comes from. But I think it's always nice to have the characters and have fun with them and kind of give them their own little quirks and personality traits.
So let me ask you a question about crafting the actual crime in your head. Okay. So how do you come up with that? Do you think about 1,000 gruesome things you can do and just say that might be too much?
But see, my books aren't gruesome, right? My books are funny.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I could not write, like there are people who are like the nicest people in the world. And then they write these books that are like just like torture and all these horrible things. And like, you might take like a week or two to read a book, but to write a book, like you have to, even a scene, you have to be in that scene for days, weeks, maybe months. Like I don't want to be trying to figure out how to torture somebody for like a whole week, so I don't write that stuff. But I think my TV background helps because I spent a year, I have a master's degree in screenwriting from USC. And I spent a year on Cold Case. I worked in TV for about like 5 years.
Yeah, so you always want to get into that too. But
jumping ahead.
But
like I think that helps me with the plotting and the intricacies of the plotting. And I'm just a big twist. I like when I read books to have really good twist. To me, a good twist surprises you, but when you think about it, it makes sense. So I'm always trying to figure out like what's my twist and how can I plant enough things in it for it to make sense, but it still shock the person when it happens. So
yeah, I think I'm like her. I don't like the gory killings and stuff like that. Like I kind of like what's one of my authors I like is Jodi? Is it Jodi Picoult? Jodi Picoult. And her books are really like suspenseful, but at the end of the day, when it gets to the end, it doesn't seem like gory, even though it's killings and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
It's always like a good ending to the end of
it.
So yeah,
satisfying, which is always nice.
Yeah.
So. Kellye won't be crafting like Seven or like Kiss the Girl.
No, yeah, no. Can I Kiss the Girls? I think I remember reading that book when I was a youngster, like 20 plus years ago, and there was a scene in there that disturbed me to this day. So I think actually Kiss the Girls is how I know I cannot write that.
So James Patterson.
James Patterson, who obviously is super successful, so it works for him, but I personally just can't do it. So.
Yeah. It was funny. I was thinking, I was going to say that about James Patterson, like his movie, I'll say his movies. I guess it is a movie in your head when you're reading that, but when you're reading the book, it's like it keeps you up, man. It keeps you up. You're thinking all night, like this could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's like that realistic. Like I don't want to be scared at night. I'm not I don't like torture porn type of movies, like Seven, like Saw, and all those things. Like I'm like older, so I like the Freddy Krueger, Jason, where it's kind of like this could never happen. Like right. But the ones that you're like that could happen, I'm like I can't do it.
Yeah, these are real people. I think what did I read? Midwife or something like that by James Patterson. It was like something crazy where it's like a nurse killing kids or something like that.
Yeah, just that idea, killing kids. Yeah, no.
Doesn't go good with your soup.
But people love it, and it's a whole market. And I'm glad that's a great thing about mysteries is you can have a wide variety of different types of tones and subgenres. So whatever you like, and you like mysteries, you can find something that you like. So.
I was looking as I'm kind of looking up you today, and something just said, let me look up his net worth, man. James Patterson makes a lot of money, man.
He works hard for it too. He's a brand, so I think he's probably like the highest paid author. I think.
Is he higher than Stephen King?
Yeah.
Maybe not Stephen King and J.K. Rowling. I think he might be the highest paid crime fiction author.
Stephen King has always been like weird to me in the sense that the same guy who gave you It also wrote The Green Mile, also wrote The Shawshank Redemption. You know what I mean? It's great that he has that range and he wants to do. Like I personally just want to write mysteries, but it's amazing that it just shows his talent level that he can write so many different things and it can connect with people in so many different ways.
I was actually going to ask you a question until I started, reading up on the different authors and wondering how is the book game, being that you guys are like it's not really a lot of bookstores like they used to be. I guess they are. I mean, we come from New York, so people are like really nostalgic and they like to go buy books. But I think a lot of people just actually download everything now.
I mean, I think that it's great because you can get books a lot of different ways where you still have amazing independent bookstores. You can get them online. A lot of independent bookstores sell books online too. Like you can, if you prefer an Amazon or like a Barnes and Noble, you have that element. And I think like I'm a mix where I have a Kindle and I read books on Kindle, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I want to like hold an actual book in my hand, and it's so great that we have that option. Like if I'm going on vacation, like my Kindle is my best friend because I can just like have literally like thousands of books in one little device and I have to pack them.
So what's the difference between like physical publishing and digital? When you're starting off as an author and you put your book in a digital format, so they might charge you about $3 or something if it's a newer author. And then you have in some cases where the digital books are like super expensive. And then the physical book is even more expensive. So it's like, is there a difference between the print media and the digital media?
I mean, I think obviously digital could be cheaper because you're not buying, like it's not paper. Like you think paper costs money. So like books, to actually make a physical book is going to cost money. So I think that's also one reason why it is more expensive. I don't do pricing, so I don't understand what the pricing level is in terms of digital books. Like I think my my book's a hardcover for like The Sister, which is like $28. And I think that Kindle is like $14, so it's a lot. But like I don't know how they figure out that pricing, but that's what a lot of the traditional publishers do. I self-published my day books. I just reissued them as self-published, the 2-day books, and I like marked them like $2.99, $3.99 because I was like, to me, it doesn't cost any extra to do it like that, so I might as well just do it in a way that people can make it a little more accessible.
And I wanted to ask you about that too with the self-publishing because as a self-publisher, I know you have a lot more footwork to do in terms of graphics and all, like so
I'm sorry.
I was going to just say, was that like hard for you, or is it something that was more natural?
So I was in a unique situation where my day books were actually published by a publisher before, and they went out of business before my third Dana book came out, and they kept my rights for years until last year, February of 2021, and I got them back, and I was super nervous about it, so I just sat on it for a while, because I didn't want to have to try to like figure out how to format it and figure out the new covers and figure out everything I needed to do. Luckily, I have a couple of really good friends who are self-published or have made the jump from traditional to self-published, so they helped me out. I was lucky because it's a book that had been published already. It was already edited, already copy edited. I just had to pretty much reformat it. And then I had a good friend of mine, Ernie Chiara, who did the covers for me. So my process wasn't from scratch. So it was probably a little bit easier. And then also, I don't necessarily do a lot of marketing for it because it's people already know about the book just because it's been out for a while and it's like, has these awards and stuff. So I think it would be a different process if I was doing a book from scratch. So.
Okay, and I know that you have like the second book for the Dana series is the Hollywood Ending,
which was not supposed to be. I shot myself in the foot because I thought I was being cute with Hollywood Ending because it's like, oh, death, and it was supposed to be second out of 3 books, and then of course my publisher closed, and it literally became the last book, so it was the ending.
Oh wow! Because I was going to ask you, with a title like Hollywood Ending, was that just it for Dana? Like we're not going to see anything?
No, that was not the intent. The third one was supposed to be called Hollywood Hack, and if you go on Goodreads, it's still listed, and someone has gave it 4 stars, even though it's still a computer file.
Right.
But it was not. I just
I
love it. Why not 5 though? Like why not 5 if you love the character? I just thought it was a cute play on words, Hollywood Ending, and then it just, like I said, it ended up being a prophecy.
So do you foresee this being the end of, because the book reads like it can be a series of books, like I say, even a TV show.
That was the intent, and I even ended Hollywood Ending on like a kind of a cliffhanger. I ended them both on a cliffhanger, and so the intent was to have a third book in the series, and I actually have like 3/4 of it done. But when my publisher closed, I'm going to get like inside baseball. A lot of other publishers will not buy a book midway through a series. So they either want all of the books in the series or they want none of them. Right. And so, like I said, my old publisher had kept the rights to the two first ones for such a long time that it was just kind of like this, like there's no point of writing a third book because no one's gonna buy it.
Right.
So that's why I went and did the standalone.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I wanted to try a standalone, and so that's happened. And then after I sold the standalone, all of a sudden I have my rights back, and it's kind of like I feel bad because people ask me all the time about the third book. And I hope one day to get back to Dana, but like right now I have the standalone, Like a Sister. I have another book under contract with my publisher, so I just don't have the time to get back to Dana. So hopefully, like when I hit the lotto or something, and I have all the time in the world, I can get back and see what Dana and her friends are doing.
Dana is like your Craig Mack. She actually got this thing started, and we're not going to circle back. So we just start focusing on big. And
are you saying that she like a sister's Biggie? Yeah, like a sister's Biggie, and
we forget about Craig, huh?
So did you sign like a publishing deal or something like that? Is that what you're saying? Or
for my Like a Sister? Yeah. So I'm with Mulholland Books, which is an imprint of Little Brown, which is an imprint of Hachette. So it's with a major publisher. And it's been a different experience to be with like a big time publisher who like really believes in the book, which is nice.
So let's talk about your new book.
Yes.
Full disclosure, it's not coming out till next month, right? So
it'll be out in less than 2 weeks. Thank you very much.
Less than 2 weeks. Oh, less than 2 weeks. The point is.
The point is that less than 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks, yeah. So I want you to tell the audience about the story without giving away too much. So like we said, it was kind of based on a headline. Now,
yes,
correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
I would love to correct you. Let me know. What is it?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. The story was the headline for the Lyric McHenry.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
New York Daily News headline, and it was like Lyric McHenry, pregnant former reality star found dead in Bronx with cocaine and no pants on.
Yeah.
Which is such a horribly disrespectful headline.
Absolutely.
And I felt like they would never do that for like a Kim Kardashian or a white woman. Mm-hmm. But here's this Black woman, and they decided to just rip her to shreds in this headline. And so I was kind of like, that's like horrible. And it's in the first chapter of Like a Sister, it's a similar headline. The first line is, I found out my sister was back in New York from Instagram. Mm-hmm. I found out she died from the New York Daily News. And so it has a really similar disrespectful headline, which my character is kind of pissed about in that first chapter. And so that's where I got the inspiration from. And I was also fascinated by the idea of like, how did this glamorous reality star go from partying it up on her birthday in downtown Manhattan to dying alone on a street corner in the Bronx?
Yeah.
And so that's where it came from. It's not based on Lyric McHenry. By all accounts, she was an amazing woman. Mm-hmm. And I don't think she didn't get murdered. This is a horrible circumstance with her. But just like that headline sparked something in me. So
yeah, because when you read it, it's like, this sounds very much. Not to say that you poached from that, but it sounded much like that case, and I could see it was
inspired by the headline for sure.
And she was, for people who don't know, was a film producer. Television producer.
Yeah, I think she went to Stanford. She did, like I said, she was just amazing. My character who dies is a hot mess, but like Lyric McHenry sounded like she was amazing. So.
And the thing is that now that you see more, like we had two former Miss USAs or something like that just passed away. I think one was one from Houston, I believe.
Oh, I think.
And they died in similar fashions.
One, I know this woman unfortunately died by suicide recently, and then I know someone else. I don't know how she passed away. It was like Miss Alabama or something.
Miss Alabama.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, I don't know. It was like she died from an accident, so I don't know what happened with that.
One lady from Extra. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't remember her name, but jumped out of a window, and they said in that particular building they had several cases of people who died in the same fashion.
That's horrible.
Is there something? So that might be something for another book to think about. Like,
I think I talk about this in Like a Sister a lot, which is that idea of the strong Black woman, and that that's a kind of like I think society always likes to call us the angry Black woman, but we call ourselves the strong Black woman. And I think sometimes we kind of can crumble under the weight of that, of how Black women aren't allowed to be vulnerable. We don't get a lot of empathy that I think a lot of our white counterparts get. Sometimes we don't get as much empathy as Black men get. And so it's tricky. It's hard to always be strong. Even me, like when I cry, and then I feel bad that I'm crying. I feel like I'm being weak, right? Like I'm not even kind to myself about it. And so I think that's something I kind of look at and like a sister. And I don't, I always say I don't know what happened with that woman who passed away, but everyone seemed, even her mom seemed surprised that she was at that point where she was dealing with depression, so badly that she ended her life. And so I think, it's sad that sometimes we feel like we can't get help or admit that we're not doing okay. So.
That's just how we're raised. I mean, I think we're all raised with that, that craziness of, trying to be too strong.
You got to be strong, right? It's like Black people, you got to be strong. All the stuff we deal with.
Especially the way that things are going these days and have gone in the past. It's like you have to kind of keep a good face on, but beneath the surface, you don't know what anybody's going through, because when
you don't know what anyone's going through. And even like with that woman, like her last picture, because I went on her Instagram, it was this gorgeous picture, and and all her Instagram was, everything's just gorgeous. Like, it's just so beautiful. And I kind of touch on that too in the book, where like Instagram is like this kind of filtered life. It's not just filtered pictures, it's a filtered life. And like everything's supposed to be so, amazing and wonderful. And you don't know what's going on after the picture's taken or before it's taken. So
right. So in this particular story, of course, you have the person that passed away, and then the sister investigating this, or looking into what happened and all the events that led up to it. So
what happens is my main character, her name is Lena. Her sister who passes away is Desiree. And they're estranged. They have not spoken in 2 years because Desiree drives drunk and gets in a bad accident and then does not want to admit culpability for what she's done. And so Lena's like, I'm just over it. I can't deal with you anymore. They're half sisters technically. Lena has a strange, weird relationship with her dad, who's like this hip hop mogul. And so she has this guilt when she finds out that Desiree has died. And she's kind of like, what happened in the last 2 years that she ends up, overdosing? And that guilt kind of drives her. And spoiler, she finds out that her sister actually dies a couple blocks from her house in the Bronx. Wow. So in her mind, it's, why was she coming to see me? And why didn't she make it? And so that's what drives her throughout the whole book.
Sounds like an interesting read, definitely.
I mean, I enjoy it.
So I know, like you say, you put a little bit of the humor and sarcasm in all your stories, and also like this one, I got to be honest, Kellye, sounds a little bit heavier than.
No, it's not. It's heavier, and I thought I was trying to like write a really like serious book.
Right.
And I had a friend who was reading in early pages, and she was like, I was cracking up on the PATH train. And the PATH train, like the subway between New York and New Jersey. And first I was like, no, like you're not supposed to be laughing. And I was like, you know what? I just have a natural sarcastic kind of tone and voice. And I'm just going to lean into it, And so even though the book itself is more serious and deals with a lot of serious issues, I think Lena's outlook on life is kind of very funny sometimes and sarcastic. The witty is the word I will use. The word that I will use.
So let me ask, what type of crime authors, novelists inspire you?
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have? So
all the time you need, Kel. All the time you need.
I was lucky in that I was a teenager in the 90s, and that was kind of like this like golden era of Black crime fiction. You had Walter Mosley. You had, I think he probably is like the most well-known period. And then there was a lot of Black women who were getting published at that time. So there was a woman named Barbara Neely. was definitely inspired by her. A woman named Valerie Wilson Wesley, who I was really inspired by because she wrote about a PI in New Jersey. And I was from New Jersey, so I recognized the places. It was like Essex County. I was like, oh my God, I recognize these places. Like, that's so cool. There were a couple of other white women writers who were kind of breaking down doors for women in the 80s that I was inspired by, like Sarah Paretsky and Sue Grafton. So those are the people who inspired me. Laura Lippman is another one who really inspired me to like, okay, maybe I could write a crime book one day because these people did it. Due to racism, a lot of the Black women stopped publishing probably by the early 2000s, but they were there when it was like a very, like, you know, a time for me when I was young enough to kind of, and naive enough to think I could do something. So,
do you have a favorite book? A favorite book of all time?
I don't know if I have a favorite book of all time, but when it comes to mysteries, I always tell people to read B is for Burglar by Sue Grafton because it has a really great twist. It's this white woman who is a PI in California. Her name is Kinsey Milhone. And it's actually like a really short book, but it has a great twist. And that's why I think I love twists so much, where you're like, oh, that's surprising. But now that I think about it again, it makes sense. So. And
you're a co-founder of Crime Writers of Color. Yeah? You left that little tidbit out there.
I was so much sensitive to toots that I forgot.
All right, that's why we're doing it for you right now. So yeah, tell us about that. How did that get started?
So,
but I thought it was going to be a bunch of sisters in there or something like that. When I looked up there and there was like a few Caucasian people, I was like, oh, this is kind of different. You know
Crime Writers of Color?
I saw the list of people and it was kind of.
Oh no, everyone in the group is
I thought it was going to be a bunch of sisters.
Oh yeah, no, we have men and women, and we have all different ethnicities. Well, of color, like there aren't white people in the group. Right. But so I understood community through two groups. One was a mentoring program called Pitch Wars that I was in, and one was Sisters in Crime, which is a major mystery organization. And so I was surprised there was not already a Crime Writers of Color when I got my book deal. And I had this woman named Gigi Pondian, who was more established, just kind of was like really nice to me and offered to like read my book and blurb it. And she and I were talking because she's Desi, she's Indian American, Desi, I should say, not Desi. And she and I were talking about, like, we should start a group. And then someone else told me that Walter Mosley wanted to start a group. And I was kind of like, okay, that's great, but how will I ever encounter Walter? Like, Walter Mosley and I are not like hanging out in the same circles. Right. And wouldn't you know it, 2 weeks later, I got invited to do a panel with Walter Mosley. And so I said, if I get to meet Walter Mosley, I am going to tell him that I want to start this group. And when I met him, I told him, and to his credit, he took my information down. He called me the next day. We had a great convo. And then like within a week, we had started the group where Walter invited all the people he knew. I invited all the people I knew. Gigi invited all the people she knew. So we had like 30 people. Wow. So we started off. And now the group has about like over 350 people. Wow. And people, as long as you're a person of color and you want to write crime fiction, you could be in the group. So we have people like Walter Mosley, who are just super, established. And we have people who are like, I think I might want to write a book one day. And like, everyone's equal and we all support each other. And it's just this really great safe space to kind of chit chat.
I know you mentioned Pitch Wars, and we've interviewed people who actually went through Pitch Wars. And they said that's actually a very hard thing to get through.
I didn't realize you interviewed. Yeah. I was on the board of directors for Pitch Wars. We just ended it. Like,
no, well, not the board of directors for Pitch Wars, but my original question was going to be is like, do you in this group mentor young writers like they kind of do in Pitch Wars, where they assign you different writers?
No, so we have not done that. I'm not saying now that I no longer do Pitch Wars, maybe we'll do something like that. But right now it's just more of an informal listserv where we just kind of chat about stuff. And so we do have we have our own podcast, Robert Justice does, and we have a really great website, crimewritersofcolor.com, which has a books page, and it has information on some of our members if you want to book them as a speaker. And we occasionally will do like panels for our members, but everything we do is volunteers. So if someone comes to me or Gigi or Walter and they're like, we want to try to do this, like, sure, go for it. Everything we do is because someone has come and wanted to help everyone else out, which is cool.
So let me circle back to something. Your time on as a writer for Cold Case. Mm-hmm. Okay, so like, what is that writer's room like? Because Cold Case can be a pretty heavy show.
It's interesting because it's like you just sit in a conference room and you just spend all day talking about a story and figuring out what happened. And you would spend like 1 week per episode. So you just spend that whole week figuring out what happens in those 42 minutes or whatever the time is. And you figure out every character beat. So it's really collaborative. You know, I think I like the collaborative element to it. It's tricky because you're sitting in a room all day. You're on my head. I used to be so tired after work because my head would hurt because I'd be having to think. Yeah. A lot of jobs you don't really think all day. You know, you might pretend like you're thinking all day, but you don't really think. You take breaks a lot, and so when you're in the writer's room, you have to be thinking all day. And I think the other thing that frustrated me was that there's so many hands in the pot. It's not really your story. You know, even if your name is technically on it as the writer, you know, one, everyone has pitched in to figure the story out. Two, you get notes from the showrunner. You get notes from the network. You get notes from the studio. And so by the time it airs, and then like the director has his vision and the editor cuts stuff out. And so by the time it airs, it's not necessarily your story. Right. And I think that's what I love about books. Like my book is my book.
It's your book.
Every word in that book, I wrote that book. I wrote it and I decided that word should be in it. I decided that this should happen. And, you know, maybe someone might have suggested that happened, but I might go, you know what, that's a good idea. Or I might go, no. So that's the thing, is that my books are my books, which you can't say on TV unless, I don't know, you're like some random person who, like, I don't know, has all that power. But
right,
like Shonda Rhimes could probably say like her Shonda Rhimes can say like Grey's Anatomy's her show, but like most authors, like writers on TV, they cannot say that that's their, everything in that page is their vision. So.
What was the feel like when you first received that copy of your book, when you got that box that said the first Hollywood Homicide book comes in? What's that feeling like to say, I accomplished this book is mine?
I still can't believe that I have written 3. Like, even like I have, you guys think, obviously I can't say it's a podcast, but I have my like a sister book like behind me, and I just like stare at it sometimes because I just cannot believe, because I wanted to write since I was 5. Right. And so the idea, like when your dreams come true, it's a very surreal experience.
Especially when you get paid to pay for something that you like to do, you know.
Exactly. This is no longer a hobby for me. It's a career, which is kind of like, if people ask you what I do, I'm like, I'm an author. Like, and like literally, I'm like literally, like really, I am an author. I'm not an aspiring author. I am an author. That's you wonderful. Can go to a store and get my books. So that's kind of cool.
And then it's out in the atmosphere. It's going to be there for as long
as. Yes, for good or for bad. It's funny because I think for me, I take a long time to write books. And so it's my book. It's my, and I control everything about it, and I control who sees it, and I control, like I said, like the pages and things like that. And then when you sell it, all of a sudden here comes these other people in, and like, obviously I'm lucky where my publisher's super supportive, my editor's super supportive. And then it gets published, and all of a sudden like the whole world has access to it, and I no longer, it's like you're my baby, like my baby's now out in school or out in the world, and people to judge it, and they can do whatever they want with it. And it's just weird because it's no longer my baby to protect.
So what's the biggest compliment that you received from because I've read a lot of reviews on your books.
I don't read reviews, so I can't tell you. I don't read them. I just for my mental health, I take it. It's like the Erykah Badu quote, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. Yeah. That's, I think, me with my books, where like you could have like, I loved it, but this one line, loved it. And I'm like, you didn't like that one line. Like, that's what I'm going to focus on, is the one thing you hate. And so for my mental health, I believe that reviews are reader spaces, and I'm not going to go into that space. So you can say, like, you could talk about my mama in a review. I will never know because I'm not going to read it. That's just my mental health. However, I did one time see a Black woman who was on a forum, and she said she felt like I felt like she wrote that book for me. Like, I understood, like there was something just the way about Hollywood Homicide and the way she described things, and the way that, that I just felt like it was for me. And that to me was the biggest compliment. Like, Obviously, I want everyone to read my books, but I really want Black women to kind of see themselves in the story and be proud and be able to connect and recognize ourselves. So,
because you do realize, out there somewhere, you're inspiring the next person.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I've been so inspired by so many people, and I'm very vocal about inclusivity and diversity in crime fiction because it's gotten better the last couple of years. So when I first came out, there was a lot of racism in publishing, and they were not publishing Black authors or authors of color in crime fiction. And so I've been very vocal about that because I understand that representation matters. Right. Like I said before, I knew I could write a mystery because I saw the Valerie Wilson Wesleys and the Barbara Neelys doing it when I was a teenager during my formative years. And so I think people of color who are younger than me, especially Black women, they need to see that representation of themselves on the page too. So.
Yeah. So you speak about like racism within, is it just more like in this particular genre of books?
No, I think it's just publishing. I think they try to say, oh, we try to publish books that people of color, but no one buys them. And so it's, publishing is a business. Right. I think people, just because it's based on a lot of people fulfilling their dreams, people forget it's a business. It's a business that's meant to make money, right? So if they don't think your book's going to make money, they're not going to buy it.
And that's what it is. And I was talking to, I had an interview with Nadine Johnson, who wrote a book called I Write Wrong. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but Nadine was saying that too, that the publishing game is such a stringent, crazy game. Like it's certain, like for instance, she mentioned in her book, it was a line in there, she mentioned some, about God. And the schools told her, we can't put this book out because you talked about God. You said something pertaining to God. And we're like, this is crazy, but Harry Potter is required reading, but she can't talk about God. It's like, the things of that nature. She was saying like how it was hard for her to get in there because she's writing positive stories, and especially coming from African-American people, but women in particular, you're writing positive stories. But there's whole sections dedicated to books that are like Black erotica. And nobody has a problem with that. Like nobody has a problem with the Black street crime fiction, whereas you're writing about, solving a murder, and it might be humorous in the way that you're doing it, but they want to hear more of the gritty stuff. And I guess that's what's actually selling. I mean, the last time I believe Barnes and Nobles was open or something like that. Not Barnes and Nobles, Borders. And they had like a whole section with nothing but that was under African American literature.
How do you feel about that? Like, do you think that does good for authors? Like the fact that when you go to Barnes and Nobles and Borders, like you guys have like your own section, or would it be better if you were like intermingled throughout the store?
I think I would love to see both. I think that I should be able to be in every, like the section that the white people in. I definitely think you should be able to do that because a lot of people aren't going to go to the African American literature section. I haven't checked an African American literature section in a while, so I don't think my books are even in there. I know they're in the mystery section. But I was going to say something about what Carl was saying earlier. Oh, this is what I was going to say. So again, publishing is a business, right? So I think people assume that you just write a book and that's it. But a book has to be marketed. A book has to be publicized because no one's going to read a book that they don't know about. And so it's not enough for a publisher to buy your book. They have to market your book. And I think that can be an issue too, where they'll buy a book. That was fun, and then they'll be like, oh, no one bought it because they didn't know about it. You didn't do a good job marketing it. So I think that has to play a part in it too. Like we have to not just buy books by people of color; they need to market these books as well. Right. And I think they're starting to do that. I know my publisher definitely is gone, really great, doing a really great job with marketing my book and making sure it's out there and people know about it. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Also, I think that my books are beach reads about Black women. It would not be realistic if I did not discuss certain things about race in it because I'm a Black woman. So there's going to be certain things that, microaggressions, the things I have to deal with. However, I do think that publishing in the media tries to capitalize on our trauma, and they want books about racism. And I think, and sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of people who aren't Black want, I remember like Jasmine Guillory said that she's this amazing romance writer who writes about like, you know, romance. She doesn't write about racism. And a white woman told her she missed an opportunity to educate me on racism.
Wow.
Like, that's our job. That's not my job. My job's not to educate you on racism.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
That's not my job. And so I think if you're a person whose sole purpose, you're only reading Black books for the trauma, you know, so you can pat yourself on the back for reading about Black trauma, that's an issue too, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that in terms of your earlier thing where white people have all types of books.
Mm-hmm.
They have books that are good. They have books that are bad. They have books that are funny. They have books that are serious. They have books about crime. They have books about love. And we should have the same thing.
Right.
So if we have a book about, you know, gangs, that's great. But we should also be able to have a book about, you know, other types of Black people.
Mm-hmm.
If we have books about erotica, we should be able to have books about love. Like we should be able to have everything that our white counterparts have when it comes to books. We should be able to have that too. And we're not at that level yet. Hopefully one day we will be. And I think it's getting better right now. But you know, like I said, in the 90s, all these Black women were getting published. And then by like 2005, none of them had deals anymore. So I'm just like excited about what's going on. But I also want the current situation to become a status quo, not a trend.
Right.
So.
That's good. That's good. And outside of, you know, writing crime fiction, do you see yourself writing anything outside of that? Like you mentioned, you might have. I've seen it. You.
If someone gave me $500 million bazillion dollars, maybe. No, I'm just joking. You know what? Crime. I just read that. That's what I read. I don't know if I don't think I'm creative enough to do the world building of like a, you know, a fantasy novel or write a sci-fi. I think with the romance, I'd probably like still want to throw a murder in there. Like, you know, like so. And you know, and I think the great thing about like crime fiction is that it can kind of cross genres. Like you can have like my day books. There's a subplot about a romance, and like, you know, her friend Amari, and you know, or you can have like there are books that are fantasy that also have crime in them. So I think you can kind of, if I wanted to write romance, I could have a romantic, you know, subplot in the book. But I think right now I'm just like a crime person.
What I wanted to ask you, if any event that Hollywood Homicide, Hollywood Ending were made into a movie, let's just say they were, and you're writing for that, who do you envision playing the character of Dana Anderson?
You know, it's funny. I think like 5 years ago, I would have had a really good answer to this, and I don't have one right now. Who's the Asia Naomi King? I think she'd be a really great Dana. I think she was on How to Get Away with Murder.
Mm-hmm.
I think she'd be great. Used to be LaToya Luckett. That's who I wanted. Dana was based on looks wise, but
okay.
But yeah, like, I don't know. I haven't done cast my book in a long time. I don't think I haven't cast like a sister either. I probably should do that. Yeah, go and have some fun.
Because you never know. Like I said, that Hollywood Homicide series, that Hollywood Homicide and Hollywood Ending, those books are I mean, I'm a sucker for the reluctant detective. You know, like for instance, if you watch Only Murders in the Building.
I love that show.
Yeah, that show was awesome. So like when you look at stuff like that where they're like reluctant detectives and things, that the story reads something, not to say compare your book to that, but it kind of reads with that comedy, that kind of beat there on comedy that I can envision this as I'm reading it. I can envision this being a series.
You know, I think it's because the TV background, and I don't. I'm not like a super like I'm not going to have like pages of description. I'm a plot person. Like the plot's got to happen. You know, like I love the plot. That's what you get with my books. Yeah. You want like a 2 pages on a tree, that I'm not the person for you. Like you'll be very mad. I don't just, people always like, I don't know what this building, like, you have to describe the room. I'm like, what do you mean? There's a couch. You sat down on the couch. Like, what do you mean I have to describe the room? Like, that's my attitude about it, which is not the best attitude. I should probably do better at it. But like, yeah, I'm like a plot, like my plots move, they go.
And that's what I loved about the story, is that it wasn't, you know, overly complex. Like you said, when some people have to describe every little nuance, every facial expression, every crook and noise and things, yours were just like straightforward, straight Straight read.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's get that story going. So,
all right. So before we get ready to wrap, I just wanted to ask. I know we have like a sister, and I want you to promote that as much as possible.
Because it comes out in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. So after Like a Sister, I know you're working on another story. Is there anything that you can tell us about it without giving away too much of anything?
I can tell you that my agent and editor are like, where is it? Because it's so far behind. But I got the idea when I was staying at a friend's house in Baltimore, and she let me stay there for a writer's retreat. And it was like this beautiful, like kind of 4-story row house. And I was on the 3rd floor sleeping because I was by myself in her place. Right. And I was like, I don't know what's going on the 1st floor. And I could walk downstairs and find a dead body in the foyer. And her neighbors would be like, who's the Black girl? Why did she kill somebody? And so that's where the idea came from for my book, where it's about this Black woman and her boyfriend who go to Jersey City to visit New York on vacation. And she wakes up one day and her boyfriend has disappeared, and there's this missing white woman in her foyer. She has to figure out what happened and deal with the kind of the fallout of people thinking that her boyfriend did it or she did it, that something happened to this woman in their Airbnb. So.
Wow. Always got murder on the mind.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a murder writer. You were expecting like romance and love? Like,
well,
no, he's
I know if ever I'm strapped for cash and I need to look at a billboard.
But I don't know if you have a husband or a boyfriend, but I know you got to sleep with one eye open around you.
Oh, never. No, you get it out on the page, so you're fine. That's the thing. Right. Like crime fiction writers are the nicest people on the planet because all our aggression is out on the page. Like if you piss me off, like I'm going to kill you on the page, and then like we can be friends in real life. Because I got the aggression out. So.
All right, that's definitely a person I got to bring to an escape room one day. See how
I've been to escape rooms and I killed it. I killed it.
Oh, really? So you do knock those out the park, huh?
I do. I haven't been in a long time, but the ones I went to, I killed it.
Oh, I know. They don't like to see you come in, right? Do you tell them at the end, like, I write stuff like this?
I surprisingly don't mention, like, I have a day job, but I don't really talk about my books. I keep them separate. So I should probably be better at, like, yes, I'm an author. Yeah. I'm an author, but I'm not.
Well, you don't want to sound too, like, arrogant or anything like that. Yeah, it's a difference between a good flex and just arrogance.
I was gonna ask, how do you juggle that? Like, because most people, we get off of work, and I mean, I'm assuming that you're writing at work. I mean, we get off of work.
No, I don't write at work.
Oh, no.
I don't write at work. Okay.
No, I thought maybe you might be doing like some freelance writing or something like that. Or,
no, I work very hard at my job from 9 to 5:30.
Okay.
It's tricky. It's hard. I don't like. I get 2 weeks of vacation. I just started a new job a year ago, so I don't have like the full 3 weeks yet. And every vacation is going to book stuff. So and it's tricky when like now, like we're gonna be done. I have to go write now, so it can be hard to find that balance. I do look forward to the day when I hopefully can be a full-time writer, but I'm lucky that my job's great and they're really supportive of me, and it's just a really great place to work. But it's hard.
No free copies at the job, right? We're not playing that game.
I mean, if they were, my boss asked, I would be like, yeah, no, buy a copy, boss. Yeah. But
no office raffles. We're not doing that.
I would say my whole family, they all bought the book. So
yeah, you got to support. Yeah, buy the book. Yeah.
She from Newark, New Jersey. You got to give out a few samples every now and then.
Just a little taste.
That's how it works.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so Kellye, it was definitely a pleasure having you on. I thank you for making time for us.
Thank you for inviting me and reaching out. It's a great conversation. So.
It is. And so, listen, you're not going to be a stranger. You definitely, once the book goes out and gets settled in and everything, 2 weeks. She's going to keep reminding me 2 weeks.
I'm going to get a copy.
Yeah,
matter of fact, I'm going to sign on Amazon right now and get the...
Go for it.
Yeah, let's get this
rocking.
All right, so can you tell the people where they can catch you at?
So my website, so my name is spelled a little weird. It's Kellye, Garrett. So website's my name. So KELLYE GARRETT.com. And when I did my Twitter account, I never thought I'd be like a published author. So it's Kellye Kell, really professional.
Okay.
But it's KELLYEKELL. That's Instagram too. So.
All right, excellent. And of course, you can catch the Only One Mic podcast on Instagram and Twitter at the Only One Mic P1, Facebook and LinkedIn, the Only One Mic podcast, and also you can hit us up on email, the Only One Mic 00@gmail.com, and also Only One Mic podcast on YouTube. You can catch us there as well. Yeah, as always, speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant, because they too have their story to tell. Kellye Garrett. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Please don't be a stranger, all right? And as always, never ran from the Ku Klux Klan, and I shouldn't have to run from a black man. Peace.